The terminal beeped twice. It was a sharp, flat sound that cut through the low hum of the Seattle coffee shop. I stared at the digital readout. Declined. The barista shifted her weight. She gave me that look of forced polite sympathy. It was a Tuesday morning. I was 31 years old. My name is Julian Vance. I work as a senior forensic data architect for a private fintech compliance firm. My job is to trace hidden offshore assets through encrypted ledger systems. I do not get my cards declined. I pulled out my phone and accessed my banking portal. The screen loaded. My primary Chase Sapphire reserve balance appeared. The available credit was negative $12.40. The total balance was exactly $34,850.22. I clicked into the transaction history. I did not blink, I did not sigh. I simply analyzed the data points. There was a charge for $8,450 to a luxury resort in Cabo, San Lucas. There was another charge for $3,200 at a boutique spa. There were 24 separate transactions for high-end dining and excursion packages. All of them processed within the last 48 hours. Before I tell you exactly how I dismantled her life, let me ask you something. Where were you the exact moment you realized someone you trusted was quietly destroying your future? Let me know down in the comments. I paid for my coffee with the $62 remaining in my checking account. I walked back to my apartment in the rain. I did not call my mother. I knew she was the authorized user I had set up for emergencies. An emergency meant a flat tire or a medical copay. It did not mean chartering a private catamaran off the coast of Mexico. My chest felt heavy, but my mind was completely clear. I opened my laptop. I initiated a secure VPN tunnel. I logged into my proprietary forensic tracking software. I did not cancel the credit card immediately. That would trigger an alert to her phone. I needed to map the exact digital footprint of her spending first. I needed to secure my infrastructure. She thought I was just a quiet, obedient son who fixed her router. She did not understand the architecture of my profession. She was about to learn everything. Elena Vance operates on a simple psychological algorithm. She creates an artificial crisis, extracts capital, and masks it as maternal necessity. This was not a sudden lapse in judgment. It was a pattern of escalating baseline variance. For the past 7 years, I was the designated financial triage unit for our family. I paid her property taxes when she claimed the county made an error. The exact amount was $4,112. I covered a fabricated emergency dental surgery. It cost $3,800. I later pulled the itemized receipt from the provider network. It was for cosmetic porcelain veneers. Whenever I attempted to establish a boundary, she deployed a calculated gaslighting protocol. She would cry softly. She would remind me of the sacrifices she made during my childhood. She would call me ungrateful and emotionally barren. My sister, Chloe, acted as her primary enabler. Chloe lived rent-free in Elena's basement. She parroted the narrative that I was simply hoarding my corporate salary. I viewed this drain as an acceptable tax for my peace of mind. A historical transaction analysis proved this was a severe miscalculation. I ran a comprehensive audit of her secondary spending patterns across my accounts over 36 months. The spreadsheet populated instantly. I applied a pivot table to categorize the vendor codes. The systemic bleeding was far worse than I had estimated. She had successfully siphoned $22,490 prior to this vacation. She utilized microtransactions to evade my mental accounting. $50 at a boutique here. $120 at a salon there. It was structural theft executed through 1,000 small cuts. She foolishly believed my silence was undeniable proof of my ignorance. She confused my emotional detachment with weakness. But in the world of forensic data architecture, silence is just the collection phase. You do not confront a suspect when you suspect fraud. You confront them when you possess absolute mathematical certainty. I carefully reviewed the exact digital timeline of her current vacation itinerary. She was scheduled to remain in Cabo for another 5 days. This gave me exactly 120 hours to construct my full countermeasure. I did not feel any anger. Anger is a volatile variable. I felt a profound, cold clarity. I was no longer her son. I was an auditor permanently closing a thoroughly compromised, deeply negative ledger. Elena and Chloe lived comfortably inside a digital ecosystem I built from the ground up. I configured their secure home network using an enterprise-grade router. I managed their password vaults through a centralized administration tier. I routed their automated utility payments through a masked proxy. They viewed this infrastructure as basic magic. They never considered who held the master encryption keys. My professional toolkit goes far beyond consumer security. In my daily work, I utilize proprietary blockchain ledger applications. I trace laundered funds across multiple global tax jurisdictions. Applying these advanced analytics to a suburban household is asymmetrical. It is like using a military satellite to monitor a lemonade stand. I logged into the family password vault. I executed a silent backend protocol to bypass her authentication. My screen instantly populated with her entire digital footprint. I did not just see the accounts she knew I controlled. I saw the hidden directories. I ran an automated script to scrape her browser cookies. I discovered a secure portal connected to a regional credit union. She never mentioned this specific institution to me. The login credentials were saved locally on her machine. I established a remote desktop connection to her primary laptop. It was currently sitting dormant in her home office. I bypassed the sleep screen using my administrative backdoor access. I navigated into the local drive and extracted the cached statements. I parsed the files through a rapid character recognition tool. The program extracted the raw data into a clean spreadsheet. I stared at the sum sitting in a hidden account. It was exactly $85,420.10. This money was methodically siphoned from my income over 7 years. It was padded by an undeclared life insurance payout she claimed was denied. She was hoarding stolen capital while actively maxing out my credit. I secured a complete mirror image of the hard drive. I downloaded the full transaction history onto an encrypted flash drive. My unseen labor was finally yielding highly actionable intelligence. The arsenal was fully loaded. I had the exact routing numbers and time-stamped wire transfers. I mapped the entire network of her concealed assets. She was sipping margaritas on a beach thousands of miles away. She had absolutely no idea her digital vault was breached. Her entire carefully constructed financial reality was now completely sitting on my wooden living room desk. The breaking point did not arrive with a dramatic emotional revelation or a tearful phone call. It arrived at exactly 11:14 on a Tuesday night. I was staring at a secondary offshore routing number Elena had deliberately hidden beneath a fabricated shell LLC. I realized my mother was not just financially reckless. She was an actively malicious financial parasite draining my resources. I immediately initiated the severance protocol. I opened the primary Chase administrative portal. I located her authorized user profile under my Sapphire Reserve account. I did not simply pause her purchasing power. I executed a permanent cryptographic revocation of her physical card. The system prompted me for a standard reason code. I selected option 4, which classified the user as a hostile financial liability. The secondary phase required complete systemic digital isolation. Elena and Chloe relied entirely on the secure network infrastructure I maintained. I accessed the Meraki Enterprise dashboard connected directly to their physical residence. I located the specific MAC addresses for their personal devices. I did not just change the wireless password. I implemented a hard block at the router level. I severed their connection to the wider Internet protocol. They were now completely and fully digitally stranded. I moved to the centralized password vault. I initiated a forced remote wipe of the application from all connected mobile endpoints. The authorization tokens evaporated in less than 3 seconds. Every streaming service, every automated delivery application, every saved credit portal was instantly locked behind a randomly generated complex alphanumeric encryption key. They were entirely locked out of their lives. I reviewed the active Cabo San Lucas resort itinerary. Elena was scheduled to check out of the luxury resort in 3 days. The current outstanding folio balance was $4,210 for incidentals. The hotel possessed her physical card, but the authorization server now recognized it as a dead piece of plastic. I logged into my cellular provider dashboard. I located her international roaming package. I terminated the data plan and restricted her mobile device to emergency local dialing only. I removed the automatic payment proxy for the property utilities. The electric company would attempt to pull the monthly draft of $214 on Friday. It would bounce directly against a closed gateway. My apartment was completely silent, except for the quiet humming of my desktop cooling fans. The entire digital extraction took precisely 40 minutes from start to finish. I systematically removed every invisible support structure I had provided for my family over the last decade. They were about to experience the unfiltered friction of the real world for the very first time. Elena sat at a premium beach resort with a deactivated credit card and a severed cellular connection. Chloe was sitting in a dark basement without internet access or the ability to order premium food delivery. The administrative withdrawal was flawlessly executed across all systems. I closed the terminal window and poured myself a glass of cold, filtered water. The first communication attempt occurred at exactly 8:14 Pacific Standard Time. Chloe initiated a cellular call to my primary mobile device. I did not answer. The call rolled to my secure digital voicemail server. The automated transcription software converted her audio file into a clean text document. Chloe sounded frantic. She stated her television streaming interface was returning an error code 404. She complained her automated grocery delivery for $182.15 failed. She demanded I fix the router configuration immediately. I archived the file into an encrypted folder labeled Escalation Matrix. 2 hours later, the secondary barrage began. Elena discovered her financial isolation. She bypassed her deactivated cellular data by connecting to the public network at the resort lobby. She used a third-party messaging application to send a rapid sequence of texts. I monitored the incoming data packets through my desktop interface. Her initial messages attempted to deploy standard maternal guilt. She claimed the hotel manager humiliated her in front of a wealthy couple from Chicago. She stated her incidental bill for premium tequila tastings and spa treatments was now $4,300. She demanded I unfreeze the account. She said I was ruining a deeply necessary mental health retreat. I maintained total broadcast silence. When the guilt protocol failed, she immediately transitioned to aggressive threats. This was a predictable behavioral loop. She stated she would return to Seattle and legally force me to pay. She claimed I was legally obligated as her son to maintain her lifestyle. She threatened to post fabricated stories about my mental instability on her social media profiles. She wanted to damage my professional security clearance. She typed rapidly. She made multiple spelling errors. Her emotional dysregulation was leaking through the digital text. I took high-resolution screenshots of every specific threat. I embedded the files with verified cryptographic time stamps. This established a legally admissible chain of custody for the incoming daily harassment. Chloe attempted a secondary communication protocol. She sent an email from a local coffee shop on an unsecured public network. She threatened to physically break down my apartment door. She claimed I was abandoning our mother in a foreign country. She used the word sociopath twice in one short paragraph. Their panic was entirely asymmetrical to my calm. They were flailing wildly against a brick wall. They relied on volume and intimidation to force compliance. They did not realize I had already audited their entire hidden existence. I was not intimidated by a woman stuck in Cabo San Lucas with zero available liquidity. I was not afraid of a dependent sibling who could not configure a basic dual-band router. The trap was perfectly set. The escalation simply proved their absolute financial dependency. I organized the threat logs into my master digital dossier. I calmly prepared for the next critical administrative step. This was the true beauty of absolute cold competence. I did not need to raise my voice to completely dismantle their false authority today. The most critical phase of a forensic audit is the consolidation of undeniable proof. In my profession, we call this the receipts protocol. You never enter a confrontation with assumptions or partial data. You enter with a fully documented, mathematically perfect timeline. I needed to ensure Elena could never manipulate the narrative. I needed the hidden $85,000 to be a matter of absolute record. I opened my primary data visualization software. I imported the raw CSV files extracted from her hidden credit union account. I built a comprehensive flowchart tracking every single diverted dollar. I mapped the initial source of the funds. A significant portion originated from a life insurance policy my late father secured. The exact payout was $62,500. Elena explicitly told me this policy lapsed due to non-payment. This was a documented structural lie. I traced the secondary funding sources. The remaining $23,000 was systematically skimmed from my direct deposits over 7 years. I isolated the exact routing paths. I matched the fractional transfers from my checking account to the deposit timestamps at her hidden institution. The correlation was 100%. The data formed an unbreakable chain of evidence. I did not stop at the bank statements. I accessed the local county property tax portal. I pulled the public records for her primary residence. I cross-referenced the property tax payments I made on her behalf. I found a secondary home equity line of credit she secured against the house. The remaining balance was precisely $41,210. She was highly leveraged and hoarding stolen liquidity simultaneously. I compiled these documents into a single, encrypted master PDF dossier. I included the $85,000 bank statement. I included the life insurance disbursement ledger. I included the itemized receipts from her Cabo San Lucas luxury vacation. I included the threatening text messages and the frantic voicemails from Chloe. The document was 47 pages long. It was heavily annotated with professional financial commentary. The burden of proof was completely satisfied. Let me ask you this directly. If you discovered your own family secretly banked the life insurance meant for your future, would you let them explain or would you destroy them? Drop your answer below. I secured the master dossier behind a two-factor biometric lock. I uploaded a redundant copy to a secure offshore cloud server. I printed 3 physical copies on high-weight archival paper. I placed them inside heavy black folders. The administrative trap was completely locked and loaded. I possessed total visibility into her financial architecture. I possessed her hidden capital reserves. The receipts were immaculate. I sat back and waited for her inevitable return flight from Mexico. The final phase was rapidly approaching. The quiet severance was over. The loud destruction was about to officially begin. Elena returned to Seattle on a Thursday afternoon. The resort manager had forced her to wire funds from her hidden account to cover the outstanding incidentals. I monitored the $4,300 transaction as it cleared the international gateway. She was furious, embarrassed, and completely unmoored. The forced liquidation of her secret capital was a direct hit to her psychological armor. She immediately deployed the false truce protocol. This is a classic manipulation tactic designed to regain control through artificial vulnerability. She did not text me threats from the airport. She did not demand I restore the wireless network. She sent a single, carefully crafted message. She asked if we could meet at an upscale local bistro for a quiet family dinner. She stated she missed me and wanted to clear the air regarding the recent misunderstandings. I knew exactly what this was. She intended to corner me in a public space. She believed I would avoid causing a scene. She thought she could leverage societal politeness to force my compliance. She planned to use Chloe as a secondary aggressive flank to guilt me into restoring her credit lines. I replied with a simple confirmation. I agreed to meet them at exactly 7 o'clock on Friday evening. I arrived at the bistro 15 minutes early. I secured a large corner booth with maximum visibility to the main dining room. I placed the 3 heavy black folders on the table. I ordered a sparkling water. I sat with perfect, upright posture. Elena and Chloe walked through the front doors at precisely 7:10. They were attempting a unified front of casual superiority. Elena wore a highly expensive silk blouse. Chloe carried a designer handbag I inadvertently financed. They slid into the booth opposite me. Elena smiled thinly. Her eyes were hard and calculating. She attempted to control the immediate narrative. She sighed deeply and placed her hand over mine. She stated the vacation was highly stressful due to my unfortunate technical errors. She smoothly requested I transfer $5,000 to her checking account to cover the damages I caused. She claimed she would forgive my erratic behavior if I restored the network access by tomorrow morning. Chloe nodded in agreement. She added that my actions were deeply concerning and borderline abusive. They were attempting to gaslight me into an immediate capitulation while seated in a crowded restaurant. They wanted me to apologize for stopping my own financial bleeding. They expected me to lower my head and silently absorb the artificial guilt. I did not withdraw my hand. I did not break eye contact. I looked directly at Elena. I noted the faint trembling in her fingers. The false truce was a fragile construct built entirely on my historical passivity. I picked up my glass of sparkling water. I took a slow, measured sip. The trap was ready to spring shut. The bistro was comfortably full at 7:30. The ambient noise of clinking silverware and low conversation provided a perfect acoustic cover. I did not speak a single word until their initial offensive completely stalled. Elena removed her hand from mine. She looked confused by my profound silence. Chloe shifted uncomfortably in the booth. I reached for the first black folder. I slid it across the smooth wooden table directly in front of Elena. I tapped the heavy cardstock cover twice with my index finger. I maintained a low, perfectly level vocal register. I instructed her to open it. She frowned deeply. She slowly opened the folder. The first page was the high-resolution screenshot of her hidden credit union balance. It clearly displayed the sum of $85,420.10. Her face instantly drained of all color. The artificial superiority fractured into pure, unadulterated shock. She looked exactly like a ghost. I slid the second folder across to Chloe. I told her to look at page 4. She opened it and saw the complete cryptographic tracing of my direct deposit transfers into Elena's secret vault. It proved her rent-free lifestyle was directly subsidized by my stolen labor. I explained the exact methodology I used to bypass their network security. I detailed the extraction of their local hard drives. I used highly technical language. I informed them the secondary offshore routing number attached to the fabricated LLC was permanently compromised. I handed Elena a physical copy of the life insurance disbursement ledger. I pointed to the exact date the $62,500 cleared. I stated she explicitly lied to me for 7 consecutive years regarding my father's policy. I watched the realization physically crush her posture. Elena attempted to speak. She opened her mouth, but only a sharp intake of breath escaped. She frantically looked around the crowded restaurant. She realized she could not scream or cry without drawing massive public attention. I had utilized the exact same public space she chose for her false truce. I weaponized the social contract against her. I leaned forward slightly. I dropped my voice to an absolute whisper. I informed them I was permanently severing all financial and technical support. The credit lines were dead. The internet was blacked out. The utility drafts were cancelled. I advised Elena to use her hidden $85,000 to manage her own life. If you caught a family member actively stealing your future in real time, would you report them to the authorities or handle it yourself? Sound off in the comments below. I stood up slowly from the booth. I placed a crisp $20 bill on the table to cover my sparkling water. I looked down at the 2 women sitting completely paralyzed by the sheer volume of undeniable receipts. I turned my back to them and walked calmly out of the bistro. I left the folders sitting exactly where I placed them. The systemic collapse of Elena and Chloe's fabricated lifestyle was mathematically guaranteed. The immediate friction they experienced within the first 48 hours after the public confrontation was profound. They were operating a luxury existence entirely dependent on my automated background systems. I monitored the residual fallout from a safe distance. The local electric utility company executed a physical shutoff at their residence on Monday morning. The monthly draft bounced off my closed account 3 consecutive times. They sat in a dark house with no ambient power. Their food spoiled rapidly in the large refrigerator. Chloe attempted to access the hidden credit union funds. This was a critical miscalculation. I had already filed a formal, highly documented dispute with my corporate fraud department regarding the siphoned $23,000. The bank temporarily froze Elena's secret account pending a full federal investigation. Her $85,000 was completely locked in administrative purgatory. She was cash poor and fully leveraged against the property. The social ramifications compounded the financial ruin. Elena missed 2 critical payments on her luxury vehicle lease. The finance company issued a standard repossession order. I observed a tow truck arrive at her driveway through a neighborhood security camera I previously installed. The operator quietly removed the pristine white SUV at 6 a.m. She attempted to utilize her social network for temporary liquidity. She called her wealthy friends from the country club. She fabricated a story about a massive banking error. They were politely dismissive. The country club suspended her membership due to an unpaid monthly assessment of $650. Her reputation as an affluent, independent widow evaporated instantly. Chloe was forced to seek actual employment to survive the short-term liquidity crisis. She applied for a local retail position. The background check required a digital footprint she no longer possessed. My remote wipe of her centralized password vault destroyed her established online identity. She could not access her historical tax documents or verify her previous phantom employment. The entire structure imploded under the weight of its own dependency. They were left to navigate a harsh analog reality they had actively avoided for over a decade. I did not feel pity. I did not intervene. They were simply experiencing the natural consequences of their systemic parasitism. I sat in my quiet apartment and watched the final data points settle into absolute verified zeros. The final calculation was not financial. It was profoundly psychological. I secured a total, unassailable peace. They could not contact me, and they could not extract another cent. They were permanently locked out of the sophisticated architecture I had built for my own life. I did not just cut them off. I surgically removed their entire infrastructure with cold competence. I moved the final remaining funds from my secondary savings into a high-yield investment vehicle. I sat back and watched the compound interest slowly accumulate. The profound silence in my apartment was a luxurious reward. It felt mathematically perfect to live a life governed purely by my own deliberate choices. The asymmetry between my structured calm and their frantic destruction was cathartic. I had weaponized their reliance on my invisible labor to completely sever their control. I no longer needed to carry the artificial burden of a family that saw me only as a utility. They taught me exactly what happens when you treat a son like a high-limit credit line. Have you ever burned a bridge with absolute mathematical precision? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the dark reality of financial survival.